Absolutely loves the Lions. Detroit had the third highest chance to win the Super Bowl. They trail only the 49ers and the Chiefs with FPI. The Lions were only one half.
I'm going to let this clip play, but who on earth thinks that the Cowboys have the top four and are in the top four chances of winning the Super Bowl? I mean, that is insane. That is insanity to me. Where do they think the Dallas Cowboys are suddenly going to have a chance to win the Super Bowl when they couldn't even get past the first round last season and they've only gotten worse? It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Half away, as you know, from reaching the Super Bowl last season. They had a 17-point halftime lead against the Niners in the NFC Championship and then blew it. Dan Campbell was asked about all the changes in Detroit in recent years.
We were going to go the hard way, which is the right way, we believe, when you're kind of starting from the ground up. You know, you have to do that. It's, you can't put a Band-Aid on something that needs stitches and expect it to just hold. So, every team's going to have adversity. Every time you come into a new situation, it's going to happen. It's how you handle it, and then being able to believe in what you're doing and stay true to the process, right? That's the part where you got to have the intestinal fortitude to hang in there and just keep doing what you believe in.
So the latest Dan Campbellism, you can't put a Band-Aid on something that needs stitches. I love it. D. Woody, arguably their secondary needed a little maybe stitching up, fortifying for this season. Did they do enough to take this thing one step further?
Yeah, listen, I love what the Detroit Lions did. That secondary gave them the most explosive plays in the National Football League, and they just really attacked the weakness of their team. And you saw them, they made a move to bring in Carlton Davis in free agency, and then they double dipped in the draft in their first two picks with Terrion Arnold and Ennis Rakestraw Jr. At the cornerback position. I love what the Detroit Lions are doing. Obviously, this team is they're like bullies out there. They got arguably the best offensive line. We heard Dan Campbell earlier in this process in the offseason talk about Jameson Williams, how he's probably the most improved player. And if he can bring, something special on the outside, it adds a totally different dimension to the Detroit Lions offense. And so, listen, this Lions team, I love the way they're built, and they're going to be right there in the end.
Hannah, I completely agree with D. Wood. And really to focus in on that secondary, I think what they did is they took a weakness and turned it into a strength, adding Carlton Davis and drafting those two corners in the first two rounds. What that is going to allow them to do is play more man-to-man on the back end and give Aaron Glenn, their defensive coordinator, a chance to send more than four rushers and not have everyone just key on Aiden Hutchinson. And as that graphic showed, Hannah, for them to get to where they want to go, you think about those explosive offenses between Philly and Dallas and certainly San Francisco, their ability to be able to play man-to-man on their back end will hopefully make a big difference in their postseason success this season.
Mike, you mentioned that they could play a little bit more man coverage. I think something that struck me watching this secondary last year, this past defense, is they didn't play as much man as we typically see in an Aaron Glenn defense. The year before, they played the second most man coverage in football. Last season, that dropped to 15th in the NFL, and I think it was largely because of the weaknesses they had at corner that he had to compensate for. In Terrion Arnold, they got a corner who I truly believe can be a solid press man corner at minimum in the NFL. And his ability to do so, I think, is going to depend largely on Aaron Glenn, who, I don't know if people remember, but coming from New Orleans, he coached the DBs there. He was the DBs coach when Marshawn Lattimore won Defensive Rookie of the Year, came in and was immediately excellent in man coverage. If he can do the same thing with Terrion Arnold in Detroit, I think that will dramatically elevate this team's Super Bowl odds, which are already strong.
Yeah, I mean, they were 27th in pass defense. The other great thing they did is they locked up three key offensive players, Penei Sewell, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jared Goff. So they took care of business on the other side of the ball. All right, part of what...
Yeah, so I think anytime, right, you turn a weakness into a strength, right, you're going to be better. You're going to improve. Anytime you can elevate your floor higher. I think the offense will improve just by sheer continuity, that the players are getting older, more mature, more experienced. Everyone's getting more comfortable. Ben Johnson's more comfortable as an OC. Like, everyone's just more comfortable. I think they learned from some of the mistakes that they made last year. I think they'll have a more balanced approach of being as aggressive as they can be, but also being a little bit more strategic and smarter in that regard. And I just think ultimately their offense is going to play smarter. So I think your offense is going to grow. And if you're going to now patch some holes in your defense, that's also great. Because really, when you're looking at defense, you got to think of like, well, who are you going up against, right? Who are you trying to beat with your defense? Who are you trying to contain? And it's seemingly the 49ers, the Philadelphia Eagles, the Green Bay Packers, right? Like, those are the people that they have to try to contain. And you want to be able to play, right? First off, you want to be able to have people focus more on not just Aiden, and you want to be able to have, you got to be able to attack someone like a Jordan Love or Jalen Hurts or Brock Purdy. I mean, like, you want to make those quarterbacks as uncomfortable as possible. Now, again, it's easier said than done, especially when you're looking at the Eagles, who have a lot of weapons like A.J. Brown, Saquon Barkley, Devontae Smith. Like, their offense should be a lot more balanced. The Packers, they're also a young team that's obviously growing and also going to get more and more comfortable. So the way I look at it is, your defense, if you're the Detroit Lions, your defense just can't be this absolute weakness that other teams can just completely expose. Because, again, the Packers will most likely put up points. The 49ers most likely will put up points. The Eagles will most likely put up points. No matter how amazing your defense is, you'll be able to put up, they'll be able to put up points against you, no matter who you are. That's just football. That's just the way how the NFL is so offensively forward. But what you have to be able to do from a defensive standpoint is not let Jordan Love, Brock Purdy, Jalen Hurts hang 30 on you, or an easy 28, or have you go down 14 in the first quarter, going into the second quarter, whatever it may be. Because now that bogs down your offense as well. That puts all the pressure on your offense. You're constantly either playing from behind. Your playbook changes. It's like everything changes. It just changes the complete nature of the game. And so at the very minimum, if your defense can just make it harder for those guys, force some 3-and-outs. Like, they don't have to be perfect, because again, we know those teams are going to be able to put up points. They're not just complete scrubs. The 49ers did go to back-to-back NFC championship games and a Super Bowl for good reason, right? It's not luck. And how we saw that they're favored to actually win the Super Bowl, that's for good reason, right? I think the Detroit Lions can win. I think the Lions should have won last season. But I just think that with their defense, you don't necessarily, you can't just blame always just one aspect and say, well, this is why we lost. We always do that in sports, and to say, well, their defense was awful and that's why they lost, or the offense was awful, that's why they lost. And it's usually a combination of the two, but the offense was obviously not a weak point. But it's funny because people either point to the defense as to why they lost in the NFC Championship game, or they point to the offense of some drop passes and going for it on fourth down, and they blame that. And again, you can look at it from both ways, where if the defense played a little bit better, they win, and if the offense played a little bit better, then they win, right? So it's just, we can always just kind of pick and choose what truth we want to agree with. You can say that about the 49ers in the Super Bowl. If their defense just held Patrick Mahomes a little bit better, they win. If their offense, if Brock Purdy just makes one more throw, then they win, right? So like you can kind of always do that when there's not this glaring weakness that you're just being gashed. Like the Eagles, right? Their defense was just trash, and they were being gashed, and it was just like, what are you going to do? You can't just say, well, if their defense was a little bit better and their offense was a little bit better, then boom, they win. You can't say that about them. Same thing with the Dallas Cowboys, right? Like, you can't say that about them either. So I think what the Lions are doing is just, they're just building a complete team. Top to bottom team, where maybe the offense could be a little bit sluggish, but the defense will be able to pick up the slack. And when the defense is a little sluggish, then the offense will be able to pick up the slack. Like, it'll be very complementary football, where no one side of the ball feels like, okay, if we're gonna win this game, it's because of us, right? And I think the Lions maybe to some degree felt that pressure, at least offensively, that they were like, we have to be so aggressive offensively. We have to do everything we can to put up as much points as we can, and we just can't ever let our foot off the gas because we don't know what our defense is going to do. And you can kind of sense that a little bit. And I think maybe that's potentially where some of the aggression came from. So it'll be really interesting to see that if the Lions start to really have confidence in their defense, and let's say their defense becomes, I don't know, top 10, whatever, just like a trustworthy defense that they can really rely on, and they're in a game where they're completely containing the other side of the football, then it'll be interesting to see what that does for the play calling, how they'll approach games offensively. If once they get the lead, do they just continue to kind of be aggressive? Do they run the ball down the other team's throat? Like, how do they go about it? Because I don't know if we got to see enough of that last year. Because they did play a very specific style of football. So, because that's kind of what happened, I feel, to a degree against the 49ers. Like, they were aggressive and they were doing everything that they could to obviously win that game, but it was kind of like, you kind of got the sense that it was just like, we have to keep putting up points because we might lose this game. And in a way, that's what happened, right? Like, they didn't score. It's going to sound funny to say, but they didn't score enough points. And they lost. When in reality, if they said, we belong here, we got the 49ers on the ropes, let's just play smart football now. Like, let's just, milk the clock. Let's kick field goals. Like, let's not give the ball to the 49ers. Let's not give them good field position. Let's pin them. If we're not going to kick a field goal, let's punt them. Let's put them in the corner. Let's put them at the 5-yard line. Good luck getting past our defense. I don't think they had that level of confidence. And some of the big plays, especially in the 49ers with Brandon Ayuk and stuff like that, ended up being a difference maker. So I think when the defense becomes more complete, then the offense, their decisions now, their opportunities start to expand as well, and you just become a more complete team. And so that's why I think, especially this season, that the Lions are really poised to do some damage. And listen, if you're a Lions fan, you should be excited that you are considered top four to win. And believe me, I don't think that the Cowboys are anywhere on that level at all. So it's like that, just add their percentages to the Lions percentages, because I just can't see the Cowboys even remotely hanging with the Lions. It's just not even close to me. But those are just my thoughts. I would absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Detroit Lions and the fact that they've elevated their defense, and how will that affect their chances at winning a Super Bowl? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.